This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
It sounds like one of the names they would have for a monarch. It's like Queen Javia the First, Black Radical Queer, among queer Negro women.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
I'm on my black girl magic voodoo shit, with the bamboo earrings on some new shit. I'm new when this money asking who this bitch. I'm the bitch with the pussy with the judo grip.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, and welcome to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. Today I actually want to do something a little different. I always talk about the personal is political and things like that. So I actually want to give some commentary on some headlines, and hopefully you all can hit me up and kind of let me know what you think as well. Some of these things are definitely current and pressing. And then others are just random things I saw on the internet or I saw on Twitter or something like that just caught my eye that I wanted to respond to. So I'm really just kind of going about this in no particular order. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, of course, I know it's something that is currently a hot topic and currently very much in the public, consciousness with Kavanaugh's confirmation. And so that's really looking at rape culture, sexual assault, the Me Too movement, just all those types of things. So something that caught my eye was I saw an article that was about, that related to Kavanaugh, and it was about Senator Susan Collins, and I think she's from Maine. But basically, she said that, so she is one of the people who voted in favor of Kavanaugh's confirmation. And I just thought it was interesting because her comment. So she said, I think that she was on 60 Minutes, right? And she told them that she thought that Dr. Blasey Ford was mistaken about the identity of Kavanaugh as the person who sexually assaulted her. She said, this is a quote from Susan Collins. She said, she's referring to Kristen Blasey Ford. She said, Christine. But anyway, she's referring to Dr. Ford. She said, she was clearly terrified, traumatized, and I believe that a sexual assault had happened to her. Okay. So she believed that, but she thinks that she was mistaken, that it was a case of mistaken identity. Now, this is interesting to me because, for one, we already know that there is that in terms of rape culture, there's a lot of victim blaming. There's a lot of diminishing the feelings of victims and making them seem like they are not credible, saying whatever you can say to go against their believability, just all types of things. It's one of those things where folks are guilty until proven innocent type of thing. It's like the victim is assumed to be incorrect or to be lying or something like that. But the interesting thing about this to me is that people think that this is an issue that women are in solidarity about. And that's just not true. And something I try to explain to people is that, okay, I know how, like I've said before on this podcast, that, I'm a Black queer woman. The reason for the show being Black Radical Queer and the Black being first is because my Blackness does come first. I can't look at it separately. It is intertwined with my womanhood and all those kinds of things. So I think that the same is true when it comes to white women. And I do feel like their whiteness comes first. And I feel like a prime example of that is when they show their allegiance to Trump or to, in this situation, Kavanaugh. So I think that, Senator Collins showed her allegiance to Kavanaugh, even though she's like, oh, well, I do feel like, Dr. Ford went through some type of assault. Okay, so you believe that, but you still are going to side with him. And the way that she justifies still supporting Kavanaugh is to say, oh, well, it was a case of mistaken identity. I think that she had the wrong guy. So just think about when I saw that, to me, I'm like, that's so insidious. And it adds to the trauma, because what kind of shit is it to say to someone that, I do believe you were assaulted, but I think that you're mistaken about who did it. So to me, that's so insidious, and it just shows like the lengths that she was willing to go to in order to have this allegiance with Kavanaugh, in order to justify her support of him despite what he had done. So she's like, okay, the way that I can reconcile this in my mind is that he didn't do it. Something happened to you, but it wasn't him. So, I can go ahead and vote for him. So that really shows her allegiance is not with Dr. Ford as a woman. There's not this gender-based allegiance. Her allegiance is based on her power and her whiteness, So I just think that's something interesting. And I think, honestly, that's something that rings true in general for white women. I think that, a lot of folks feel like, oh, well, we can be in solidarity and they can be allies. We're in this together as women. But what really needs to be realized is that white women are still white first. And it will be in our best interest to not, basically, like, we don't need to count on their womanhood trumping their whiteness, like when shit hits the fan, when there's issues like, the Me Too movement, or, it's protesting against rape culture and those kind of things. We need to keep in mind that their whiteness comes first, and we don't need to be mistaken about that. We don't need to think otherwise. I think another example that just reinforces that. Okay, so I saw this tweet. It was by Bishop Talbert Swan. So Bishop Swan said, white women kneeling during the anthem to protest rape culture is hijacking a movement you took no risks for. You didn't kneel in solidarity to protest the murder of black people. Don't co-opt and make it about your victimization. That's white supremacy in the name of feminism. And so I think that this is absolutely, I absolutely agree. And I think this just further shows that the allegiance is going to be, or like kind of that first, that primary thing for white women is going to be their whiteness. And the reason I say that is because, okay, like in this example, when he says like that's white supremacy in the name of feminism, that whiteness, that white supremacy is coming before the feminism. You're disregarding a movement, you're co-opting a movement, and disregarding the pain of people in said movement that is specifically about race. This is, kneeling and protest is specifically about, police protest and police brutality against black people. So you can't co-opt a movement and then say, oh, it's not about race, it's about rape culture, when you're co-opting something that is specifically about race. So that's why I say like their allegiance, that it goes to their whiteness first, because they have no regard. They have no regard for, like in that situation, you're co-opting a movement, so you have no regard for black people. You have no regard for that struggle. All you care about is making a point and making a statement for your own benefit. And that's why, a while ago, I remember seeing this thread. It was Feminista Jones, and she was talking about the concept of allies and allyship. And she was saying how, as she's kind of done her work and all that type of stuff, that she has realized that there's really that it really is a flawed concept, and it is not really possible for white folks to be allies, or really, in terms of the liberation of black people, that white people could not be allies. And because she looked at, what ally means, and she was talking about, ally, there's some type of mutual benefit. Like we both have a reason to be invested in this thing. So when you look at treaties, when you think about it from a political perspective, you look at treaties, and countries are allies, they both have something to gain from that treaty, from that agreement, whether it's some type of economic gain, whether it's something dealing with the military or something dealing with safety, resources, whatever it is, there is some type of mutual benefit to all parties involved. But when it comes to the liberation of black people, that is not the case, because what do white people stand to gain from the liberation of black people? We stand to gain everything because it's our liberation. But it will upset their current way of life. It will upset their privilege. So they're not gaining anything. They're actually losing something. They have to lose privilege. They have to lose their privilege in order for the liberation of Black people to occur. So they can't truly be an ally because they have nothing comparable on the line in this relationship. So, if you look at a treaty, then if, countries come to some sort of agreement, they both have something on the line. They can say, hey, we are going to have this treaty and not have conflict with one another, not have a war with each other because, hey, your country has resources that we need, or we don't need to withstand the damage and the fallout from, some type of military action or whatever it is. They both, or they all, whoever's involved has some type of benefit from it. And that's just not the case. In the situation of Black liberation, that's not the case. White people don't stand to benefit from it. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be supportive of it, just as being human beings, but they don't have anything at stake. They don't have anything at stake, period. Versus, us, we have everything at stake. So that's why they are not able to be allies. That's why the whole concept of allyship is a flawed concept. And I definitely agreed with that, with the statement about, allies, because it was something that always kind of didn't quite sit with me, this whole thing about allies. And I wasn't sure. But when I saw her talk about hey, you both have to have, some type of stake in it. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And anti-Blackness is so global that no one has the same, basically no one has the same thing at stake that we do in regards to Black liberation. So I definitely understand that. And I feel like there are things that white people do and that white women do that drive that point home about that inability to be allies. I feel like they reinforce that over and over again. And kneeling during the anthem is a prime example of that because you're co-opting a movement. I mentioned before in another episode about being at a Black Lives Matter rally type situation, and this group was trying to take over and push their own agenda, and I got into it with this white girl who kept spouting that it's not about race, and I'm like, it literally is about race. And it really, I got upset because I'm like, okay, you all appropriate everything, including our movements and our grief and our pain and our suffering and things like that. You have nothing of, it's like you have everything, but it's you still want everything, including our pain. And it's that type of thing where it's okay, so you want to kneel now because you haven't been doing that. You want to kneel now to protest rape culture. And it's why is that the way that you have to protest it when this form of protest has been being utilized to protest something specifically impacting Black people? There's nothing else you can do. There's no other way that you can protest. So that's what I mean about the complete and utter lack of regard. They don't care. And then if you say something, if you dissent, if you have an issue with what they do, then it's hey, but I'm an ally. So they weaponize that term and try to use it against you to silence you and say, well, you shouldn't have any issue with what I'm doing because I'm an ally. You shouldn't have any problem with this because I support you and I'm in this fight with you. And it's no, your fight is not my fight. And obviously my fight is not your fight. But that's what they do. So they weaponize that term. They weaponize it and use it against us to say, you cannot say anything against what I do because I'm an ally. And it's bullshit because really it's used, when I say it's weaponized, it's used to silence us. It's a muzzle. That's what it is. It's a muzzle to say, oh no, shut up because I'm an ally. I can do this. And really it's, I was having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday. And I was like, it's in The Color Purple where I can't remember the lady's name. But she was like, oh, I've always been good to you people. It's that same thing. It's still racist. And that's what people don't seem to understand. And that's what white women would like to have us believe otherwise. But it's still racist. It just is. It might be manifesting in a different way and it may not be overt, but it's still covert and it's still racist. So I just thought that was interesting to me. White women show where their allegiance is. And their allegiance is first and foremost with their whiteness, not their womanhood. And so we just have to kind of be realistic about that and about the role that they can play, if they can play any role in our liberation, in our movements and stuff like that, because they really have to be able to take a back seat. And that's something that's incredibly hard for them to do. When you're so used to being centered and we have that privilege of everything revolving around you, it's incredibly hard for you to take a back seat. it's really, really difficult for you to not be front and center. And then they get angry and they get defensive and they weaponize terms like ally to try to, to try to use their privilege and try to be in that power position. So yeah, they show where their loyalties are. It's not to us. And if we think otherwise, then that's just foolish on our part. We have womanhood in common, but just because we have that in common does not mean that we have solidarity. You can have, you have plenty of people, folks in your life who, they might be your blood relative. Y'all have blood in common, but you don't really fool with them like that. You know that y'all are not on the same page. So it's the same thing. Just because we're women and just because rape culture does impact women, and it doesn't just impact women. But what I'm saying is that still doesn't mean that we're in solidarity just because we both deal with that particular struggle. Because even the whole concept of rape culture, it still doesn't impact white women and black women the same way because we have to factor in misogynoir. So it's still not the same. And then when you have black trans women who are disproportionately impacted by it, then it's just not the same. We can't really look at it like, hey, we're all in the same struggle because we're really not. It's so much more nuanced than that. So yeah, so that's, I guess, my little spill on that. Another thing that I saw kind of floating around on their internet was about Melania Trump wearing this doggone colonial ass costume looking like, Columbus going on a safari. So she said, focus on what I do, not what I wear. That was her clap back. Like, y'all worried about what the hell I'm wearing. Y'all don't need to be worried about that. So my thing is, it's still, to me, that's still another prime example of the whiteness trumping the womanness. Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna rock this, and it just is what it is. And I don't care. I'm not gonna, accept any criticism, So, okay, so I think we have plenty of examples where, white women show where their loyalties lie, where their allegiance is, and trust and believe they ain't trying to give up that privilege to help our asses. Because what does that do for them? They're not trying to really unpack that privilege and give it up for our sake. That's going to be a no. If when it comes down to it, they're choosing that because that's what's made their lives easier. So, yeah. All right. So moving on to some things that are a little more, some stuff is still political, but I don't know. I feel like the personal is political anyway. So there's always some type of political implication, whether we realize it or not. But some other things I've seen floating around. So there's this headline. So shifting gears, there's this headline that, let's see. It says, it's from The Fader, but it says, Will Smith got the blessing to portray Barack Obama in a movie. And someone retweeted this, and Twitter always giving me my life. But somebody retweeted this and was like, I know Scarlett Johansson is pissed. And of course, I was cracking up. But something that is also, it still ties into this whole thing about, okay, for one, white folks just feel like they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. And they have that privilege. And then white women have that, and they have it kind of in their own special way, too. But it also speaks to this issue of representation in media. And it's something that when I had the episode with Kieran and we talked about, the different movies and Black queer representation and stuff like that, we talked about this. But, white people feel like they can portray everybody. They feel like they are the default and the kind of that neutral being so that they have license to portray anybody. And I was thinking about this recently because my sister-in-law has been watching Glee, and I've been catching glimpses because I had never watched Glee and have been catching glimpses of it. And it just made me think of which I think about this when I watch pretty much anything that shows some type of marginalized person. So on Glee, there's a boy that's in a wheelchair. And I was like, hey, do y'all know? I was asking my sister-in-law and my wife, I was like, hey, do y'all know whether this actor is actually disabled or not? So, and I think my wife was saying, no, he's not. And it just made me think of all those roles where you have someone who is able-bodied playing a disabled person, or someone who is not trans playing a trans person, or, all those types of things. And I'm just like, it's so ridiculous because, of course, you have plenty of actors that are these identities who can portray these people and portray these roles, but instead we'll have these roles be whitewashed and they'll have somebody in it who, because they feel like white people can kind of like take on any role. They have that creative freedom. Scarlett Johansson is a trip because she definitely is a prime example of doing that. But plenty of other people have done it too, where they've had white actors play people of other races and stuff like that. And I'm like, so you got a white person playing an Asian person, like Asian actors and actresses don't exist. You have, a white person playing a Latino person, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have actors who run all the identities that we have that exist in our culture exist in our performers. We have actors who can portray those roles. They exist. It's not like there aren't any trans actors. It's not like there aren't any Asian actors. It's not like there aren't any disabled actors. So it's really just some bullshit to me that those folks are marginalized. These are marginalized people. And so they don't get the roles when they're the ones who need the roles the most. And they're the ones who can most accurately portray it and have that genuine representation because it's needed. Disabled people need to be able to see disabled actors working. They need to see them on screen. They need to be able to, like, representation matters. Like we've seen time and time again, the importance of representation. So that's why that tweet caught my eye, because I was like, Lord, it's just a mess. They just feel like they can play all people and do all things. So moving on from that, I saw this headline. Y'all, this is so ridiculous to me. So I don't know if any of my listeners listen to Iggy Azalea, but apparently, which I had no idea, but apparently Iggy Azalea was supposed to be going on tour. I ain't know nothing about this. And you know what? Side note, I noticed that a lot of my things that caught my eye for this particular episode, it's a lot of stuff that's dealing with white women. That was not the intention. So I do want to let y'all know in advance that was not I did not intend to have this common thread of white women bullshit. But yeah, it just happened that way. So bear with me. But yeah, so Iggy Azalea, she apparently was supposed to be doing some tour. I think it's called Bad Girls Tour. I had no idea. I didn't even know she was still doing the music. I ain't seen her in a while. It's been glorious. I'm like, I haven't seen her ass popping up. Fantastic. And then all of a sudden she was supposed to have a tour and then the tour got canceled, which to me, I'm just like, okay, who's listening to you anyway? So why are you even going on tour? And I think people were more so excited about the other folks who were supposed to be on the tour. But yeah, it was canceled for some reason. And she put out an apology like, oh, I was so excited for this tour and I'm genuinely disappointed and it was out of my hands. I didn't choose for it to be canceled, whatever. But I'm just like, Iggy girl, who even listened to, like, for real? I'm not even trying to be like shady. I'm genuinely curious. Who is her fan base? Like, is people that really still listen to Iggy Azalea? Has she dropped music recently that I'm unaware of? I mean, me being unaware of it is completely fine with me, but I don't know. I'm like, how is she relevant to have a tour? Which actually reminds me, I know I'm all over the place, but this is what this episode is. I'm just talking shit. It reminds me of me and my wife were looking for tickets. We were looking into going to see Tiana Taylor, and it was like Jeremiah and Tiana Taylor in concert. And we thought it was, just kind of like both of them. We didn't initially know who the headliner was. And then we looked at the information. It's like Jeremiah was the headliner. And we're like, nigga, what? So we weren't going to try to see him. We were trying to see Tiana. So that ended up, changing. And then she ended up doing her own thing because apparently niggas was acting dumb on the tour and tried her like she can't sell out her own shows. So that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I'm just like, okay, Jeremiah, like, let's be for real. To my knowledge, you don't have some new hit out or a new album. So versus Tiana, who had an album that had just dropped before the tour started. So who folks really coming to see? You really fucking tried it. You really tried it. If you felt like the show wasn't going to go on, without your ass. So yeah, I don't know. I just want to know who listened to Iggy because I don't know nothing about that. All right. So speaking of folks who are, not musically relevant, I saw another post that had to deal with Tyrese Gibson. So Tyrese apparently had has a new baby, and he does this post talking about, okay, you know, hey, this is your name. He's talking to the baby like, hey, your name is, I don't know. I feel like her name is Soraya, maybe. Like, oh, your name is Soraya Gibson, and blah, blah, blah. He holding the baby. Y'all know Tyrese dramatic as fuck. Like, I really am not here for Mr. Gibson, because I feel like he is a damn fool, and I feel like he just puts on a show. Like, I definitely feel like he's dramatic as fuck and everything is a performance. All these shenanigans with his daughter Shayla, I'm just like, you a damn fool. Like, I do feel like he's a narcissist or something along those lines, because everything is about him. And I'm like, if you really care about your daughter, you wouldn't be acting a damn fool. So yeah, so I got issues with him. So I'm like, oh, now he has another one. Like, it's all bad. So yeah, so somebody basically was like, hey, I hope that his other daughter still feels this kind of love. You know, that type of thing. Like, you know, are you showing love to both your kids? That's basically what the commenter said. And he was like, oh, because of my court order, I can't post pictures of or videos of Shayla. But I have some pictures of her holding the baby, holding Soraya, that would just blow your mind. And I can't post them. You know, this will all change. God is up to something. And it's just, I don't know. I just got issues with him. I feel like Tyrese is like classic fuckboy, playing the victim. Woe is me. I don't know. Am I missing something? I ain't got no sympathy for him. This crying ass nigga, like, I ain't got no sympathy. When I see him crying and acting a fool, I'm just like, you just look foolish. And you're putting on, it's the theatrics, it's the drama. Like, are you kidding? What is this doing for your daughter? Absolutely nothing. So, yeah, I ain't here for him. I'm really not. And I feel like he does things to try to be relevant. Like, I do feel like he, you know, wants to be in the spotlight some type of way. And that's why I said I feel like, you know, on some level he has some kind of narcissistic something or other going on. But I do feel like that's what all that about with the thing with his daughter. And it's like, to me, to use that as a spectacle to get attention for yourself is really messed up. You know, it's really messed up for you to, like, it's performative. Your outrage and your all this crying, you know, you queuing up the camera so you can cry on camera. Like, come on. It's bullshit. It's performative. Like, if you really going through it, then you gonna save your tears for the camera. Like, you gonna set up the camera and be like, oh, I'm so distraught and I'm so my baby. I just want I don't know. It doesn't seem genuine to me. It just doesn't seem genuine to me. So I ain't here for Mr. Gibson. All right. So moving right along from that. Now this next, these next couple things I saw, tweets or whatever, y'all, I'll go with this one first. The other one I'm gonna save for last. So I saw this headline. This was actually on the Shade Room. So I don't know where the original thing came from. I guess somebody just sent it to them. Yeah, all bad. It says, my husband cheated while I was pregnant. We divorced. He married his side chick and now I'm having an affair with him. Now I'm going to reread that. I'm going to reread this. My husband cheated while I was pregnant. We divorced. He married his side chick and now I'm having an affair with him. First of all, what kind of Alicia Swiss Beats bullshit is this? I am so confused. Now, look, speaking of the Alicia Swiss Beats stuff, and Mashonda, I think her name is Mashonda. Yeah. So, okay, I'm in a lot of ways, I'm non-traditional. I'm pretty open and I'm like, you know, I'm flexible and I'm down for some stuff. I do feel like, you know, looking at like, Will and Jada and, Trey's mom, I can't remember Trey's mom's name right now, but you know how they have this whole blended family type situation. I do feel like it makes sense in their situation. However, I think it's different with Alicia and Swiss and Mashonda. The circumstances were a lot messier and just a hot ass mess. But if you're able to, you know, put that aside, y'all all blended or whatever, cool, do your thing. This bullshit here ain't even about a blended family. Honestly, y'all are just sharing the same man. Girl, just say that you the side chick and go. Like, y'all just come to some sort of agreement and just share this nigga. Like, because I don't understand. It's like, if you want to be with them and you down to be with them regardless, then y'all might as well just do this shit in the light. Because it's already been shown that, well, she was willing to be the side chick and then you were with him. Now you're willing to be the side chick while she's with him. Y'all are both down for the call. So just be real about it and not have an affair with him. And I don't know. Y'all just sharing the man. Just share him. Just do your thing, you know. I really don't, child, yo. I just don't understand. Why? You already know he's trash. He cheated on you while you were pregnant. Why are you even still interested in this nigga? Why? Why are you even still interested? So that's my question is like, number one, y'all were married. He cheated on you while you were pregnant. So what you doing? Why are you even involved with him? Once y'all got divorced, why did you have any involvement with him? He married the side chick. And so then you go from wife to divorcee to side chick. For why? For why? I just do not understand. So I don't know if y'all can give me some insight into this because I don't get it. Are y'all just going to keep going back and forth between the wife and the side chick role? Like, are you going to keep, swapping and, reverse, cha-cha now? I don't know. I'm not sure. But, I guess if it works for you, go forth and be great. I just am really confused as to what's happening. All right. So last but not least, there was this article in Cosmopolitan. So it's already going to be fantastic, right? Because Cosmo has all the good, juicy stuff for women. So this Cosmopolitan article title says, and actually this is not new per se. I have seen this circulating before. I can't remember the date of the article, but it recently resurfaced. I'm not sure why it resurfaced, but it did. So yeah, so here we are. So it says, seeking a bestie who loves brunch, Netflix binges, and going down on each other. Meet the new breed of girlfriends with benefits. And someone, shared this headline and was like, that's called gay. You're gay. Which I thought was funny. But how Cosmo, it's so interesting to me. Okay, I do feel like girls with benefits, friends with benefits is a thing. I do feel like you can be friends with benefits. I do feel like you can have whatever type of relationship setup you desire, right? But this headline or whatever, to me, it speaks to this whole idea that relationships between women are less than. It's not the same to me as, oh, we're just like, have this casual thing going on or whatever, or we're friends with benefits, whatever. It's just kind of like, oh, this is just what girls do. We hang out and we have sex. I don't know. To me, it's it kind of just speaks to patriarchy and misogyny and stuff like that, and how relationships between women are not seen with the same validity as relationships with men. That's what it really speaks to, because it's like, oh, it's automatically relegated to this realm of being casual, as opposed to just being like, women are having relationships with other women. Like, that's a thing. It's like, yeah, we just hang out and, go down on each other. I don't know. It just really rubbed me the wrong way, because I did feel like it was dismissive. Women can have relationships with each other and it not be casual. It can be a long-term relationship. It can be a lifetime relationship. Believe it or not, women can get married. I actually married one, believe it or not. Contrary to popular belief, it's not just some holding place until a man comes along, because that's really what these types of things suggest, is that, oh, well, we're just kicking it and, we hang out and we do brunch and, we fool around and, we make out and those types of things. But this is only until we get married. This is only until we have find a man. Once we each have a man, then, that's just some fun stuff we did at the time. And there's nothing wrong with being experimental. So I'm not saying that, but I just think that stuff like this is very dismissive, and it really does paint relationships between women in a certain light that is not nuanced at all. And that is just, indicative of patriarchy. So yeah, anyway, that was kind of my random thoughts on some things I saw floating around, some current events, some foolishness, etc. And I know this is different. I usually have guests on. I don't really have, I think I only have one other episode where it's just me. So this is still different, but I wanted to just give my take on some things. And I really want to know what you all think. link. I do have the BRQ Google Voice line now, so you all are able to call in. You can leave a message. We can have a phone conversation if I'm able to answer at the time, if I'm not busy. But so it's a way to be more interactive, because I want this to be interactive. I do want it to be conversations between us, because it's not just, my stories and my opinion, it's ours, and it's things from our perspective. So I do want for it to be this interactive thing. So yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, I do have the Google Voice number on there. I'll also include it in the show notes. And you can call in and leave a message. You can also call in. So you can call in and leave a message just commenting on something that you heard on an episode. You can call in and leave a message with a tag, which I highly encourage. I would love to have tags for my listeners, just saying, hey, I'm so-and-so. You're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, or you can put your own spin on it. It doesn't have to be, verbatim what I say, but it's like those things you hear on the radio, where people say, hey, my name is so-and-so and you're listening to blah, blah in the morning, whatever it is, just those types of things. I would love to have those from my listeners so I can add them onto the show. And shout out to my homie who already did one. So, and I love it. So I definitely have to add it to the show. So yeah, that is it. Thank you for tuning in to my randomness and just listening to me. I know it is different just listening to me solo, but I do want to have variety. And some things, I'm just like, look, let me just talk to y'all. So it's really just me talking to y'all about the foolishness I've seen, going on, and just giving my opinion on it, that type of thing. All right. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next time. Make sure you cop a Black Rad Queer shirt. Please and thanks. The Teespring is still up, so you can do that. We still have the Facebook discussion group. I'm still out here on Twitter. Definitely tweet me. I am a fan of Twitter in terms of, engaging that way. So it's one of the best ways to hit me up. Across all social media, you can find me at Black Rad Queer, BLK RAD QWR, as you know. And let's have a conversation and call in, because I really want to get you all's voices on here and get you all's opinions, and you talking shit with me and responding to me, and me being able to just drop in your message on the show, and you can hear yourself and all that good stuff, and we can be more engaged that way. All right, y'all. It's been real. Thanks for listening to your favorite lesbian, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye. Black Radical Queer Podcast is all about intersectionality and Black queer folks sharing our stories on our own terms. We navigate an array of identities, and BRQ is an outlet where we can see the spectrum of those identities reflected, explored, and celebrated. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javia Nicole, produced and edited by Charmaine Johnson. Music is by Publicity. You can find us on social media by looking up Black Rad Queer. It's BLK RAD QWR. We are on Facebook as well as Instagram and Twitter. Same handle regardless, at Black Rad Queer. BLK RAD QWR. We also have a Facebook discussion group that's just called BRQ Discussion Group, and you can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Play, all those types of things. And we have, our home base that's on Libsyn, so you can listen on there as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you come on back around next week to see what we have for you. And all right, y'all, I'm out.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.